Well, good morning again, everyone. I am Betty Wineland, and I will be presenting service today along with Lynn, my other half. Kevin is providing technical assistance, and Ted Goldman is our music accompanist, and we are so glad to have them both here to do all that stuff. Thank you all so much for being here, and thank you to our Zoom attendees for tuning in today. It's wonderful to see everyone who could be here in person, and we are glad that we can keep in touch and support our community virtually for those who aren't able to join us. Please be aware that we are recording this service and it will be posted on our Facebook and YouTube pages, except during joys and concerns when we pause recording for privacy. Our welcome statement is, we seek inspiration and meaning from a great many faith traditions and philosophies. We support each other's lifelong spiritual journey, and we encourage work for justice and peace. We value open minds and loving hearts. Here, may our minds stretch, our hearts open, and our spirits deepen. Please take a moment to think of all of your friends at MVUUC. Greet them here in person or with a comment in the chat box. And remember that you can still reach out to them via email, phone, social media, or video chat. Physical distancing does not need to mean emotional distancing. Let us support one another. Visitors, as we are a diverse group with varying interests and beliefs, our services are varied in format, tone, and topic. We encourage you to attend or view several services to gain a good understanding of our congregation. We also have blue information cards located in the pockets on the back of the chairs and in the offertory baskets. If this is your first visit to MVUUC, please fill out one of those forms and leave it in the basket on the front table. If you'd like to receive our weekly email newsletter, please email us at news@mvuuc.org. MVUUC remains committed to supporting our members and friends as we continue to work through this time of social distancing. For that reason, we are coordinating assistance with groceries, phone calls, and other needs. If this sounds like something that would be helpful to you, please send an email to sac@mvuuc.org with your name and what kind of assistance you would like to request. Now is the time for announcements. Announcements can be sent ahead of time to news@mvuuc.org to be read. If you're attending via Zoom, you can add your announcement to the chat box and the Zoom host will make the announcement. Kevin, are there any announcements via email or Zoom?
Yes, there's one via Zoom. The reasons of
All right.
Okay, the announcement is anti-racism reading group on January 20th, social action committee meeting on January 26th, both via Zoom at 7 p.m.
Thank you. Does anyone here have an announcement?
Hi, I'm Lynn Israel. Oh, that's loud. We're getting the drum circle back together again tonight from 7 to 8 o'clock here in the sanctuary. And it lasts from 7 till 8 o'clock. And then the fourth Sunday of the month, we're also doing another drum circle, and that'll be from 5 to 6 p.m. in the evening. So all ages are welcome. We've had babies show up. They don't do much, but kids, anybody who comes, and we have lots of instruments. So you don't even have to bring your own instrument.
Oh, sorry.
Hi, I'm Noelle McClooney. I'm the current president here at MVUUC. I just wanted to make an announcement that we are going to be kind of starting to putting together our pledge packet, our annual pledge packet, which includes kind of what our vision is for next year, what we want to accomplish. For those of you who haven't been with us, we've been doing kind of building improvements lately. So that's been kind of our push. So one year we did a new roof. So we have a new roof now. The next year we did a new fire monitoring system. And then this year we're doing a new HVAC system. So I kind of want people to send me ideas for what you want to do, what you'd like to see this coming year. My push would be I'd like to do new flooring for the building, some outside improvements. I've wanted really to have like a fence around the RE area where we can put a new play center and have a fence to kind of make it a little safer for the kids. I know there's been thoughts about a pavilion outside so we can hold outdoor services and other events. So send me ideas, what you'd like to see. What we're going to do is use that information to create the budget that then will be in your pledge packet. So the idea is that we kind of have a joint vision of what we want. We put together the budget and say, this is what we would need to raise in funds in order to accomplish this. And then we'll see if we can do that. So president@mvuc.org is my email. You can send it there. And also we're going to be hopefully having that annual congregational meeting that we've been doing every year. I haven't talked to the board yet about dates or how we're going to do it this year, but again, that's a time where we all get together and kind of talk again about our vision and what we want for our congregation. It's just kind of a nice social time as well. So look for that. All right, thank you.
No. Yeah. Yeah, I just forgot. Honestly, I'm so used to having it on, I just left it on. Right. Right. Yeah, I think everybody can hear me even if I have it on. Maybe? Okay. Got it. All right. Any other announcements? All right. The chalice will be lit today by David Love. Please join me in reading these words. For the lighting of the chalice, they are going to appear as a comment in the chat box if you are not here. I don't know. Oh, there we go. You're welcome. In this free church, we come together without creed, believing that the way we live in the world bears testament to the value of our beliefs. Thanks, David. Will you join me now in humming along to our first song of the morning, Let It Be a Dance, number 311, if you want to look in your hymnal for that. are titled, How Do I Trust God When I'm No Longer Convinced He Even Exists? By Emma Higgs. How do I stop myself from being swallowed whole by the fear and despair that can come from seriously rethinking my beliefs? How do I pray when it seems like there's probably no one listening? Can my faith survive this? If you have ever asked questions like these, I hope you know that you are not alone. If your doubts become so overwhelming that you wonder if you are losing your faith altogether, then you are in good company. Having serious doubts about the faith that has been a central part of your life can be unsettling, confusing, and scary. I don't know many things for sure these days, but I am fairly certain that it's possible to have an authentic, healthy, and soul-nourishing faith while also being a skeptic. I continue to wrestle with these questions almost daily, but I no longer fear that I am losing my faith. I actually think these questions are a valuable part of my faith. One of the biggest shifts in my thinking has been the realization that faith is not supposed to be about having strong beliefs. It's still a widespread assumption that being a Christian is mostly about what you believe. Of course, how you choose to live is important. There are very few Christians who would deny that. But it seems to me that what matters most to the majority of Christians is believing certain doctrinal statements. If you accept these statements as fact, you are saved, not by doing good works, but by asserting the validity of a particular set of intellectual propositions. I'm not saying that beliefs don't matter at all. What we believe to be true drastically affects how we live our lives. It's just that when we're talking about things like God and the nature of reality and the future of the cosmos, we can never really know, can we? We are human beings, by definition, limited in our capacity to understand such things. It's fine and necessary to have ideas and theories and doctrines about God, provided we remember they are contained within language and can fit neatly into human brains. They are utterly inadequate. A human claiming to understand God is not dissimilar to a fruit fly landing on the tail of a Boeing 747 and claiming to understand the intricacies of aeronautical engineering. This may seem obvious to some, but it took me a long, long time to come to this realization. Once I started letting go of intellectual beliefs as the center of my faith, things started to get decidedly foggy. My beliefs had been a sturdy framework on which to build my life, an interpretive lens through which I made sense of the world. When those beliefs started to shake and evolve, it was unnerving, to say the least. I've asked about every troubling question you can imagine, and yet my faith remains intact. It's a lot less comfortable than before, and in some ways barely recognizable, but it's also deeper, richer, and more authentic. It's constantly changing too, which can be exhausting, but also kind of exhilarating. Experiencing serious doubt and skepticism can be tough, scary, and depressing, but it doesn't necessarily mean you're losing your faith. It could be the first step into a deeper, richer, more authentic faith. You can take the plunge and face the difficult questions head on. Your faith might change beyond recognition, but it can survive.
This is Lynn with a mask. This is Lynn without a mask and much happier. It was in the fall sometime when we were meeting outside on the other side of the church that Lisa got up and said, and gave an impassioned plea that we needed people to do services in the later on in the year and after the first of the year. I gave it some thought and I thought, gosh, I could do that. I've done it before. I guess. So I called her on the phone. I said, well, there's a problem. I said, I'm not highly educated. I'm not the most intelligent person on the earth. And she said, that's okay. If you want to do a service, you can. So in March, coming up, I'm going to be doing a presentation on, from the perspective of an individual that lives with obsessive compulsive disorder and anxiety. And so I'm looking forward to doing that. And today I'd like to talk about my journey, how I found my way to MVUUC, considering my conservative past and my what used to be lifelong commitment, or excuse me, affiliation with the United Methodist Church. I grew up in Central Ohio on a farm east of Columbus, an area known as Blacklick, Ohio. I'm an only child. Mom, dad, myself were farm people, and most of our relatives were involved with the Summit Station United Methodist Church. I always had an interest and curiosity about church stuff. Honestly, I was kind of a church nerd. I found church life, church buildings, and stuff inside churches to be very interesting. Summit Methodist was a traditional Methodist congregation, nothing out of the ordinary for a country church, no wild preaching, no revivals or crazy antics. I graduated from Licking Heights High School, east of Columbus in 1979. After high school, I had a rather interesting religious experience. Call it salvation, call it being born again, whatever. Shortly after that time, I kind of felt the desire to go into some kind of ministry. So I went to Circleville Bible College in South Central Ohio, about 45 minutes from where I grew up, not really knowing what I was getting myself into, and was essentially educated in a preacher factory to be an evangelical minister of the gospel. I met lots of great people there, lots of yahoos. Religious settings really bring out the yahoos. The faculty were ministers in their later years and seminarians who preferred teaching to pastoring a church. It was a decent education in terms of a conservative view of the Bible and a Christian worldview. If something was written in the Bible, it was taken at face value. You didn't question it. God said it, we believed it, that settled it, was the mindset. You did not question God's word because those were the words that God spoke and dictated. I was there for 4 years and was heavily indoctrinated in evangelical and fundamentalist Christianity with heavy emphasis on Christian perfection and moral purity. Sheesh. If we were not on the road to being perfect in this life, void of all sin, we were on the road to hell. It was believed as God is perfect, that was in God's intent for humanity. I had the idea that God was rarely happy with humanity. I always thought he was kind of a demanding, crotchety old SOB. We were always to be of the mindset that our sinfulness should be foremost in our mind because we would never measure up to God's holiness. What were some of the sins? Well, okay, so whatever they could come up with. Usually the minister or the evangelist that came to the school would come up with something and, decide that this was the issue. You need to come to the altar and pray. Of course, not lying, not smoking, not drinking, stuff like that, but not attending church every time the door opened, Sunday morning, Sunday evening, and midweek services. Not reading your Bible for an hour a day, not praying for an hour a day. Who has time for that? Going to the movies, not giving enough to missions. Men had to be clean shaven. What did they do with the pictures of Jesus? And a good Christian woman would never wear pants in church because it's the house of God. Oh my. Well, I got to the point that I'm thinking, this is rather oppressive. Halfway through my junior year, I came to realize that the degree I would receive was basically worthless. No upstanding college or university would accept degree credits from Circleville Bible College, but college representatives would go from church to recruit students and say from the pulpit, and we've heard it ourselves, Betty and I, Circleville Bible College is accredited and you can get the same quality education there as you can at Ohio University or Ohio State University. Not true. So instead of common sense, instead of dropping out, I figured I would continue there and someone might accept my degree somewhere along the line. I graduated in 1984. It was a crazy time then. As a result of my experiences there and their weird Appalachian theology, even to the present, I'm somewhat skeptical about a lot of stuff of Christianity. I still believe in God to some variation. If somebody said, "What do you believe about God?" I'd say, "Not quite sure." I don't believe in God as written in the Bible. I believe that Jesus was a good guy and I respect his teachings, but I don't say I'm a Christian because that word has so many negative connotations in this present day and age. Well, like what? You voted for Trump, or you're kind of uptight. Well, that's just not me. I don't classify myself as anything really, sometimes as a skeptic, but for the fun of it, I tell people I'm a heathen. Yeah, I like that. A few things about Judeo-Christianity that baffles me is prayer. Prayer never made sense to me. I always had the feeling that no one was up there listening. And you pray and nothing happens. And if it does, would it have mattered if I prayed in the first place? Another thing that baffles me about Judeo-Christianity is Holy Communion, the Lord's Supper, the eating of flesh, the drinking of blood. Well, that's weird. In John chapter 6, Jesus is recorded to have said that unless you eat my flesh and drink my blood, you have no part with me. That's weird. The use of animal sacrifice in the Old Testament and animal sacrifice in the Old Testament and human sacrifice in the New Testament. Oh yeah, human sacrifice, Jesus. Remember him? Jesus was tortured, beaten to death, hung on a cross. Why? Without the shedding of blood, there's no forgiveness of sins, it says in the book of Hebrews. So why couldn't God have been just like any other individual and forgiven somebody or a group of people or humanity just because it was the right thing to do, because he was kind? No, Yahweh wanted to see blood. That is sickening in my estimation. I still sometimes wonder why I put myself through that Bible college insanity sometimes. I mean, in some ways, if I wouldn't have gone, I wouldn't have been the person I am. But then at the same time, I thought, well, I might have been better off. Who knows? I sometimes wonder why I put myself through Bible college insanity. I was naive. I was impressionable. I was gullible, and it messed with my mind, and it still does. 4 months after graduating from Circleville, I attended the Methodist Theological School in Ohio, also known as MTSO, a seminary just south of Delaware, Ohio. I was accepted there on probation because of my questionable degree. It was far more progressive, far more academic than Circleville. It was really a very good experience. It kind of reminded me that Christianity was not as restrictive and full of crazy thinking like I had been exposed to the 4 years before. I was there for 2 quarters, mainly because I didn't make it academically, but I met my wife. I met my wife, Betty, and we've been together happily for the last 37 years. She became ordained in the United Methodist Church and faithfully served for 30 years in Wood and Sandusky counties. For most of Betty's career, I was the minister's spouse, and sometimes filled in for ministers in the area when they were away on vacation or sickness. We have one daughter who's with us, Katie, and she lives with her wife in South Toledo, Beth. At Circleville, homosexuality was a worse sin than murder. Gosh. What has my daughter done to me? She's going to kill me one of these days. Seriously, in the midst of the last 35 years from Bible college, I've dabbled in just about anything to try to find a favorable niche for my spiritual and religious life. I've dabbled in Eastern Orthodoxy, Roman Catholicism, atheism, agnosticism, paganism, deism, unity, nothing fits. My current theological belief is summarized in these 2 sentences. Maybe so, maybe not. I just don't fit in the traditional church. When Betty retired from pastoral ministry in 2015, we moved to Bowling Green, and then asked ourselves, well, where are we going to attend church? The first summer of her retirement, it was rather refreshing because we didn't go anywhere. We went to Kroger's. We would commune on some Sundays at Our Lady of Panera Bread with bagels and iced tea or coffee. None of that body and blood stuff. In the fall, we checked out the area United Methodist churches and the Presbyterian church. And then I said, you know what? I remember there's a Unitarian church up the road. And, you know, I've been online, I've looked to see what the Unitarian church is, and it seems like it might be something we'd like. Took us a few weeks for us to get up the nerve to get up here because we didn't know what to expect. We asked ourselves, we discussed it for a while. So we asked ourselves, are they weird? Yes. How do we act when we get there? However we want to act. What do you do? Whatever they want. They don't believe in anything, do they? I don't know. So one morning I said, let's go and see what happens. We took the plunge, we got out of the car, we walked in the door. We were more warmly welcomed than we had been in any other church that we had ever been before. We enjoyed the service, minus the outward reference to God. It was like we came home to a place we'd never been before. It was wonderful. But then, after attending here for a while, we said to ourselves, what the heck are we thinking? We're Methodist. So we went back to the Methodist church. But then I had issues with them. After being here for a while, they were too religious, too Jesus-y. It seemed to depend too much on prayer. And God was also the answer to everything, as well as money. The United Methodist Church had become increasingly exclusive while we were gone. The United Methodist Church currently is a sinking ship at the point of becoming increasingly conservative, increasingly divided, and they do not like gay people. Will not marry gay couples, and will not ordain self-avowed practicing homosexuals. That's their language that they have in their discipline. The UMs feel that because persons are gay, they certainly cannot be effective ministers because they're sinful, because they're damaged goods. Well, we have a problem here. I have a daughter who's gay and called into ministry, and ministry in the United Methodist Church. Well, she went to a public presentation where our district superintendent was speaking, and she stood up and asked, "I'm gay, I'm called, where do I fit?" And the district superintendent basically said, "There's no place for you in the ministry of the United Methodist Church. You need to go somewhere where they would they'll accept you." That was the last straw. Last straw. I pulled my membership, turned my back on the United Methodist Church. As far as I'm concerned, they're dead to me. I don't follow them online. I don't pay attention to what they're doing. It was a painful time. So amid COVID, we asked ourselves, where do we belong? We don't really fit in the traditional church. What do we do? I said, let's go back to the UUs, where we should have stayed all along. We really like you all. You're reasonable, sensible, fun to be around, inclusive, friendly. And though we might not be every Sunday or very often attenders, we might not come for a long period of time, we sincerely feel like we belong here. And every time that we leave the service, we get in the car and Betty says, "I like those people." I said, "Yeah, I do too. Thanks for letting us hang around when we do. And thanks for listening to this talk." The UU Principles Connection. Today's service emphasizes the importance of principles 2, 3, and 4. The second principle, we believe that all people should be treated fairly and kindly. The third principle, we believe that we should accept one another and keep on learning together. Fourth principle, we believe that each person must be free to search for what is true and what is right. You know, I really like the principles more than the Bible. It's easier to follow. Not all that inside stuff. From the brand of Christianity that was presented, we should not exclude or ridicule those who do not think or believe the way we do. Being open-minded and exploring the views of others is necessary and beneficial to the understanding of ourselves and those around us. One person or group does not have a monopoly on Christian belief, as one person's guess is as good as another. Loving one another is the basic Christian message of Christianity. Though it may not be easy, it's a necessity that we all live together on planet Earth.
Now more than ever, we are counting on your pledge payments and donations to help sustain and strengthen this congregation that is so important to all of us, supporting our efforts to be a community of love, truth, justice, and service. Please click on the link in the chat box, leave cash, or scan the QR code in the baskets, and be sure to select the correct designation on the drop-down box when you donate. Thank you. Baskets. Now is the time for sharing of joys, concerns, and milestones. Kevin, please stop recording at this time.